do want to go back because you and I have a very similar experience because we went on this ridiculous show. And
Yes.
I can't have you on here and not talk to you a little bit about your experience. So you're casted, crazy experience. And I know you were diagnosed with lymphedema at age 11, right? That was.
Yep.
So I'm curious
Exactly.
when you went on the show, because I know that your story kind of came out through the show through Hannah's season, but they didn't do a great job of representing it. So did you go on in the show with the intentions of, I'm going to share my story, I want to be open? Because I imagine that could be difficult with dating and all that stuff. So what was your like mindset going into it?
For me, it wasn't so much coming up with the strategy. It was more like coming up with, okay, what is the opportunity to like actually find something real? Because I know the process works, and everyone says I know it's kind of the cheesy way. Bottom line, I was naive. I'll put it to you that way. And I never really watched much of the past seasons. Like truthfully, the only one I watched a little bit of is like JoJo's season because I knew one of the guys from college in the cast there. But beyond that, I was just kind of a casual, okay, whatever. So I didn't really know that it was also going to be a great opportunity if you had a cause or a great story that you wanted to bring awareness to. Because before the show, I wasn't really big on social media, truthfully. So for me, it was a missed opportunity, and I blame myself because I didn't wear my medical grade compression garments like I was supposed to be wearing like all day, every day, because otherwise my leg would swell really bad. So I basically put myself at danger every single day we were out there, especially in Paradise. Like it didn't even dawn on me that if I was a compliant patient and would have worn my compression garments, how much of an impact I could have had for the community, which is over 10 million Americans that not a lot of people know about. So that was my kind of biggest regret and I guess missed opportunity to do that.
But I can see how you approached it too, because I imagine, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, that you are diagnosed with this thing. It's part of your life, but I'm sure you don't want to necessarily define your whole life by it. You still want to live a normal life. So I can see like the turmoil you must have gone through, or like you didn't necessarily think it through fully because you're like, well, I want to be Cam. I don't want to be like lymphedema Cam. Like I can see both sides of it where like you want to help people and you want to do that as well. But then it's like, do I want my whole experience to be defined by this one thing? So I understand that approach.
But I was going to say the other part of it as well is that like with my lymphedema, I did have and still do have obviously a lot of mobility issues because at that point in the experience, there wasn't any like physical date that I was on. Because as we were getting closer in each, rose ceremony and you get further in the process, it's like, oh crap, I'm going to be on one of those dates where they do like wrestling or mud dive or whatever they do. They do it every season. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so I wanted to tell Hannah at that point before I got to one of those dates, because to me that would have came off as more calculated if I said right there in the moment. So I was like, this is something that's serious in my life and I just got to get this off my chest. And I even told her, I said, look, if we're taking this process like seriously and we truly believe in the sanctity of wedding vows, there's the line that says in sickness and in health. I'm like, truthfully, I have a chronic disease in this leg. I almost had it amputated in 2017. And so I go and I let's lay it all out. And obviously that's not how it played back when the episode aired. But when I poured my heart out to Hannah, she was very respectful and shared some personal information with me too. And at that point I felt, okay, now I can like actually be me and not worry about that lingering thing because she'll be aware of it.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, what happened with the whole Mike Johnson telling her about the pity rose, blah, 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 and being sent home that night because that was the accusation. And that's how really the true villain character, if you will, was venged. So
yeah. Looking back on that now, I can't believe they did that. And especially all the things that have happened after that, it's kind of shocking, especially because I was thinking about the fact that you go into the process, they do the whole like medical analysis. So I'm curious.
They do everything.
They do everything. Like you pee in a cup, you do all the things. They have everything about you. And there's like a doctor that checks in with us. I feel like every few days. I can't remember exactly what the process was, but like with the doctor,
morning, if you needed medication too, she was like there to issue you if you had medication you had to be on.
They're super good about medication. So you would think that if you have this thing that you've come into the process, I'm sure they didn't not know about it. So I'm just confused why, knowing all of that and with the doctor and stuff, that they didn't take it more seriously in a way with how they edited you. It's very frustrating.
Well, so just high level, that's a big systemic issue in the healthcare system in general, because lymphedema is, like I said, it impacts over 10 million Americans,
Mm-hmm.
which is more than AIDS, MLS, Parkinson's, and muscular dystrophy combined,
It's
right? Like
insane.
all of those, but there's not a lot of awareness because when doctors are in their 4 years of medical school, they only have about 30 minutes to an hour on the lymphatic system in their curriculum in 4 years,
That's crazy.
which means that once they graduate and they start practicing, they were basically given like, okay, if you blink, you're going to miss a whole section on literally a system that we have, a lymphatic system. So
yeah.
we're starting to see more progress in the research side of things. And that's part of what I do for a living. I work for a lymphedema nonprofit.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably why, in my estimation, that the doctors for the show just didn't really know how severe it could have been. So I don't blame them. I don't have any ill will towards them on that. But
That's good.
when I was crying, like the night before I told Hannah about my lymphedema, I was crying to like 3 different producers, and they were crying with me because, like, guys, this is like the thing I'm most self-conscious about.
Mm-hmm.
And I literally have lost girlfriends in the past when I've had bouts of infection, had to get surgery, and had to go through the recovery process. Like, I'm about to like basically open up my closet and expose all of my like hidden insecurities, if you will. So, and they're like, this is so brave of you. And you know how they do it. And whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not, you know how it goes. I'm the mouse. I took the cheese, whatever. And so I go into it and I pour my heart out. And unfortunately, the way it gets edited back, that was tough to see something that was so serious to me, and to have like literally 3 years of like having to go through like, honestly, like PTSD. Like, that's why I unfollow a lot of the Bachelor people, just because, like, some of them are, I'm not going to name names, I'm not here to do that, but you see a different world that they're living in. And I just don't like playing the rules of comparison, and it just wasn't a positive experience for me in general. So I try not to, stay too involved in it. But at the same time, though, I think we all, even if you have somewhat of a bad experience, still have gratitude for the opportunity, because look, otherwise you and I wouldn't have been introduced to each other. And I'm sure that we've had some amazing life stories that have transpired post show. So I'm counting my blessings on those for sure.
Yeah, it's all about how you look at it, because you can feel very like negative about the whole thing, but it is a great experience in some way that you can take a little piece of it, or you take the whole thing, no matter what it is for each person. But yeah, I'm similar to you, where I like to focus on what was positive versus like harping on the negative, because you can harp on the negative for years. So you got sent home that night by Hannah. That whole thing happened. We've seen it. They had the whole pity rose thing. And then I can imagine it going one of two ways. Like, you're like, this is the thing that I'm most self-conscious about. I finally opened up about it. I did it on this huge scale. And then I got shot down and people didn't believe me, and it got turned into this whole negative thing. I can imagine that you can be like, well, screw it, I'm not talking about it ever again. Like, I'm just going to keep it to myself and wait. But you didn't do that. And I appreciate it. Like, even for the final rose, you wore that t-shirt, which I know that they blurred out, which is still wild to me. So I just want to say I commend you for having that bravery and not taking that as like, the end all be all, and you're continuing to talk about it.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I'm like just getting overwhelmed with emotion, just taking in the words that you're saying and what it brings back and what it still lingers. And what I don't understand is like, you can manipulate people for just, if they're rude to you. Some of our castmates, they weren't the most kind to the handlers, for example, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But when you're so kind and polite to everyone in the process, from literally your castmates to your producers to all the other people behind the scenes, and they still do you wrong like that. And I get it. Right now we're in a time of censorship, and honestly, I believe there are some things that should be censored to a certain degree, but to censor a disease that I cried my eyes out to the producers the night before, and for them to have that knowledge and not say anything and to watch that happen, I mean, that crushed me. But to get back to your question, getting to that point of rock bottom was so important, because when you feel like at that moment where you're just literally not even just so much alone, you're just overwhelmed that you're just kind of stuck and you're still and you're thinking, is this the end, or which path am I going to take? Sometimes it's not clear, but being at that rock bottom, seriously, when I got sent home from all that, knowing all the things with the lymphedema was going to be portrayed negatively, and a lot of people don't want to hear this, but that's when I got close to God again. I really did. So I am a man of faith, and now I'm trying to find the balance of like not wanting to be over evangelical to people, because that can be intimidating. It can be off-putting. That's just not my vibe, right? So, but when people ask me questions like things that are very serious to me, like my lymphedema, I do have to say that I've found the strength to fight because God has been there with me all along. I just wasn't looking for him. And when you feel helpless and you have nowhere else to look, and that's the thing that pulls you through, and that's literally what has me here alive and positive today, even after an amputation 2 weeks ago, is God's grace and mercy. But also my friends and family, I'm not downplaying them. I mean, I am so blessed to have not only the lymphedema community online, which is global, but now to be in the amputee community. And you can't find more accepting, accommodating, and understanding group of individuals. So I'm just so blessed, honestly.
No, yeah, absolutely. And I like that you talk about it. And I can see how it's like towing a line sometimes, depending on who you're talking to. But I do find it very inspiring, not only just for you going through what you've gone through, but for you able to still keep that faith and find something that pulled you out of it. I think that's really awesome for people to see, because seeing it from like my seat and not going through something so challenging like that, like, I don't know how I would handle it. Like, I don't know if I'd be as strong in like my faith or something to pull me through. So it's inspiring to see people that are able to do that during very challenging and trying things. So I like that you share it.
Thank you so much. Yeah. I mean, when you get to that point of just hopelessness, helplessness, like worst physical, emotional pain you can be in, and you just get that feeling of peace and knowing that's going to be okay. That does happen if you look for it. Then, you can't not talk about it. But again, I don't want to be over, crazy guy in the corner with the microphone and the posters, but I just want to listen to people too from all backgrounds, because I mean, that's what Jesus wants. He wants us to love everybody regardless. So that's the path I'm going right now.
I like it. But one more question on that before we move on from it. If someone is looking to dive deeper into their faith, or maybe is going through something challenging, like what would you tell them? What would you recommend to them to embrace it instead of pushing it away?
This was about 2 years ago. So I guess kind of in the thick of COVID. We had a small men's group, and we were talking about how God shows up in different ways. This is what one of the guys at my table at the Bible study said. He said, guys, the way you should think about your relationship with God or Jesus is that almost think of it like it's a bank. There's deposits and withdrawals, right? So if you think about, are you always asking God for something? Are you always withdrawing from him versus depositing, right? It should be that balance. And when that analogy became so crystal clear to me that I was withdraw, I was always asking, right? Yeah. I wasn't doing anything intentionally to please him, to have deposits into him. So basically it was off balance. So for someone who's struggling with their faith, I would say ask those difficult questions, like hold nothing back, because like it's even biblical. God wants you to wrestle with him in your faith, because it's through those deep, authentic questions you're seeking the truth. And if you seek the truth, I think you'll like the answers that you'll find in the very end. And it may take years, right? It's not like a light bulb just goes off. And for some people, great. Like there's a lot of people who have those profound religious experience where it's very like visualizations, whatever the case may be. But yeah, just be patient, but be intent with it. And it's okay again to ask those hard questions.
That's a very good advice. Yeah, because it's true. You like always ask for something when you're down or when you need something, but it's like in the happier times you tend to forget to like be grateful.
Exactly.
Or, let's talk a little bit about your lymphedema. I on and off watched Hannah's season, so I knew a little bit about your story, but I didn't know the full picture. And I know that you didn't talk about it as much in Paradise. I think, for good reasons, because of how you were treated. And on The Bachelorette. So I didn't fully know about it. So I love that you're acting as a voice now for the disease, and you're speaking for people who maybe not have a voice in this world. So tell me about just the disease and how it works, and for the people who might not know about it, just like a little bit more about lymphedema.
So basically, we all have a lymphatic system, right? It starts in the base of our feet and goes throughout our entire body, and it helps move fluid. And that fluid is called lymphatic fluid. And they move through what's called lymph vessels, which lymph vessels run parallel to veins throughout your whole body, right?
Mm-hmm.
But a lymph vessel is much smaller than a vein. A vein's like the size of a pasta noodle, like a spaghetti, right? Yep. But a lymph vessel is like the size of a hair follicle. Like that's how much smaller it is. And it's in charge of moving all this fluid. So if that system in any part of your body gets compromised, whether through a surgical intervention or you were born with it, but most commonly in cancer patients where they remove lymph nodes, or if a woman has a mastectomy, what happens when the lymphatic system is compromised and those areas, which is typically like on an arm or a leg, but it really can be anywhere over your body, but it's most common in extremities. What happens to those extremities is they start to swell uncontrollably, right? Because the fluid is going backwards versus going upstream the way that it's supposed to go. So then it starts to just really, really get hard and tingly and painful, and can be obviously very debilitating, especially if you have it in both of your legs or even just one of your legs. And there's no cure for it. And it's actually progressive in nature. So if you just decide not to do anything about it, just like if you have diabetes or with any other, condition that requires, pretty daily maintenance, it can kill you because of infection. So for me, I had it pretty well under control for my lymphedema. And there's just two types of lymphedema. There's primary, which is the one you're born with, right? And that's what I have. And then there's secondary, which is the more common one, like with the breast cancer example I gave, right? Removing lymph nodes or doing chemo radiation, or even if you have any type of orthopedic surgery, like if you get a knee replacement and the doctors cut too deep or the incision sewn up improperly, that can also result in lymphedema. But bottom line, I did actually tell Hannah about it in depth, but in that episode, they edited out the word lymphedema altogether. So even like you mentioned on the Bachelor in Paradise reunion, when I had a shirt made that said, "I have lymphedema, Google it." They blurred it out at the live taping. And then they blurred it out or edited out anytime I talked about it on Paradise with a couple people. So weird. Yeah.
I don't understand that at all.
Sensor disease. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Right?
What?
There's your diversity and inclusion.
Yeah, it's weird to me, like the stuff that they'll let people talk about and the stuff that they air, and then they won't air stuff like that. You're like, who's deciding? Like, who is the one that's like, no, that's off limits, that's not. Doesn't make a lot of sense. Did anyone reach out, I'm wondering, and apologize after they've seen like your lymphedema has progressed and seeing that it is a real thing and that you really went through something challenging? Did anyone reach out?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the coffin there with the saying that's a real thing, because it literally took me having to get an amputation for people to take this disease seriously, and that's the sad part.
Yeah.
But you know what though? Honestly, this is part of God's plan all along, and maybe that had to be the disruptor to get people to listen.
Yeah.
Because that's what this world is all about. It's like, what can you do to get someone's attention? Attention is the most valuable commodity there is, right? Like even this, we're doing a podcast, we're having a conversation, we want people to listen, right? So it really is such a learning experience, like you were saying, coming out of it. And when you have that bad experience, you're like, oh man, so I guess now what's next? I'm sure you had that same thought too, like, well, what's next?
All the time.
And fortunately for me, to like kind of answer your question, that's kind of how I got into the lymphedema world, was being at that rock bottom, and someone from the community reaching out to me and just showing me so much love. And that's when I met Kathy Bates at the conference in Dallas for this breast cancer conference, and she has lymphedema too. That was the night that I was basically like invited officially to like join the cause. So at that point I said, you know what, my life couldn't get worse than the bad edit that I felt and some of the shame I felt, but now I can go inspire people who this is real life stuff. It's a serious condition, and whatever we got to do to get the word out. But I'm not saying that intentionally got the amputation as a
Yeah.
publicity stunt. Hey, listen up, everybody.
Take me seriously. I don't know.
Yeah, right. No, I'm not that
Yeah.
crazy, but in terms of people reaching out to me, the one that everyone wants to know about is either Mike Johnson or Hannah.
Yeah.
So I'd say 3 days after my amputation, I did the podcast with Tia and Natasha, the clickbait one. Yeah, I think that's what it's, clickbait, right?
Yep.
And so they had all asked, hey, has anyone from your season reached out to you? And I basically said at that point, no one from my season, of The Bachelor, because there's people from Paradise who reached out to me. But at that point, none of the guys from my season had. And that following day, People magazine, who does, the People online too, they did a write-up of that, basically calling her out. But I get it. She's living her life, and I was one of 30 guys, and I was there, let's face it, for like 2 weeks. So I didn't even make it to hometown or anything super emotional connection to. So I didn't feel like, she had to do anything special, but she did write me a very long and thoughtful DM on Instagram. And it was, I'm not going to give all the details because that's, between her and I, and honestly, there was nothing bad in there. Honestly, it was beautiful. It was uplifting. There was ownership taken, there was understanding, and then there was positive vibes. So Hannah, if you listen to this, whatever, thank you. I accept your apology. I apologize to you. God is good. We are good. Love you. So that's that on Hannah. And
ABC?
then for Mike, what's that?
ABC, no producers, anyone
from the network? No one from the network, but one producer who I love, but I won't name her. She's been consistently kind to me. She sent flowers and a very nice note when I was recovering in the hospital. So that's my involvement from, I guess, the network, if you will.
Not all bad.
Yeah. But the local, or not the local, but the overall entertainment media has been amazing. And honestly, I've been so overwhelmed having now the platform and just the outpour of encouragement from everybody. And again, the lymphedema and amputee community, and even Bachelor Nation, like the fans and stuff, have been so amazing. So I'm just really blessed to be where I'm at now. And a lot of you would be thinking, how the heck are you feeling that gracious when you just lost your leg and your life is dramatically transformed within a 2-week period? To that I say it's I don't want to say it's just life, because it's not normal per se, but it's having the mindset of having what I call faith over fear, right? If I stay afraid or stay down, I mean, it's like quicksand. Once you get in that headspace, you lose the ability, and you lose the energy to fight it, and you just sink and you're done, right? So I don't ever want to be in that headspace. So regardless of my circumstance, I know there's always a silver lining. I know that God wouldn't give me anything that he knew I wouldn't persevere through. So
absolutely,
it's just a new challenge. Bring it on. And I encourage that for anybody. Like, maybe you're having issues with your mental health. Maybe you're just feeling alone because you don't have friends, or XYZ. We all have our things that we feel insecure and incomplete about. But, again, stay positive best you can.
So with you getting the amputation, is it like once you're healed, or it's not a cured disease? So what happens now? Like, because it was in your leg, so does it?
Correct.
What's the process after that? I'm just interested in how that works.
I'm gonna hike up a little bit. So
they did a very beautiful job closing you up.
They did. At one point, when the stitches are in, it looked like a football, especially when I turned it on that angle. It's so weird. It's so weird.
Gosh.
And then I call it Forrest Stump. That's the nickname, so I can have it wave. but where I'm getting at with that is, just because they remove from the knee down doesn't mean that the lymphedema that I already have up here, up to my waist, goes away. So I got a lot of questions from lymphedema patients when they saw that I got the surgery, and their first natural reaction, which I get, is oh, they cut the lymphedema out of you. You're cured, almost surgically removing a cancerous tumor, for example, right? But the truth of the matter is that we already know from doing advanced imaging that I do have issues there, up to my hip and into my lower abdomen region. There's some backflow going on there with my lymphatic system that I was born with. So we don't know, the doctors don't know what the short or long-term implications are. So we're kind of just following regular protocols. I'm eating pretty healthy, drinking a lot of water, and I get my compression shrinker on Monday. Which the reason why they do that is they basically want to get the swelling down as much as they can, so that they can then make that cast mold, which is basically the thing that you put your leg in for the prosthetic leg. Because I'm getting one of those robotic ones. So basically,
Oh,
yeah, it's
fun.
really cool. So I'll literally stick my leg like in there. It's got a
Wow.
little suction that keeps it in place,
Uh-huh.
and I just start walking. And
Wow.
the walks can look actually very, very normal because these prosthetics have gotten so sophisticated. The knee joint, because again, they cut above my knee, so I don't have my knee. I'm an above knee amputation, though it's
Yeah.
more difficult typically for us to walk than below knee. But there's literally a robotic knee joint that has like these sensors and hydraulics in it, and it senses your walking gait based on your weight and your patterns, and it's
Wow.
just absolutely fascinating. I mean, think about if this happened to me 30 years ago, or maybe further back than that, where it's just like a wooden peg leg. I just couldn't imagine. So
Yeah.
I'm just so blessed to live in a time where we've come so far in that kind of technology, and I know it's only going to get better. Like I joke, I say I'll probably live to see a time where I have like a Tesla leg if Elon Musk gets into that
Yeah.
kind of robotics. So
Any day
but
now.
it's cool though. Yeah,
Like, what is next? You're working for this nonprofit. You are
yes.
a thriver. Like, what is next for you? What do you hope is next for you as you continue to navigate lymphedema?
About 2 months ago, so really around the time when I found out that I was going to get the amputation. So I had basically a 2.5 month period to essentially try to get in the best shape of my life, at least my upper body, because I knew that my leg was going to be gone, and that knee joint was so bad anyway. I couldn't do running. I haven't been able to run in over 6 years, I believe.
Wow.
Yeah, over 6 years, because the knee has just been shot every time. So I did as much upper body preparation as I could to get ready for the surgery. I even talked with other amputees ahead of time just to kind of sense what it was going to be like. But what really kind of came to me, and I'm going to call it divine intervention, is when this idea just came in my head to document the whole journey. And I reached out to a friend of mine who owned a production company and got a quote from him, kind of gave him the general idea of what I was thinking the piece could be. And then it dawned on me that I could reach out to my production team at my church, because the executive producer there used to be the producer at the Oprah show. So she's
Wow.
very qualified.
Yeah. Love that show.
Our camera crew has all the top notch, like 4K or whatever the resolution cameras. So it's like great stuff. And I
Yeah.
know they wouldn't want to do me bad in an edit, right? So I could trust
Yeah.
them.
There you
So
go.
I pitched the idea to them of doing a documentary about the journey that I'm going through. And they said, absolutely. So we started filming about a month and a half ago, capturing all the pre-surgery content. And that was pretty hard, just because that was like kind of giving everyone the background story of what my leg had been through all the years, and talking with my family and talking with my pastor, and even getting to the hospital, that morning of the surgery. And then I won't give away too much of the plot of it, but to literally the day after surgery, being there for the first time, I looked down at my leg being gone.
Oh, wow.
I knew that with or without the cameras, the whole journey that I'm going through right now is so real. But some people would say, I would not trade places for you in a minute. And that's fine. I mean, there's part of it that man, it sucks. But knowing that there's something much more beautiful on the horizon, and that's the hope that I cling on to,
Yeah.
it makes going through this so much easier. So we are capturing the documentary, and we don't know how it's going to end, right? Because we're like literally living it right now. And I can hope for something triumphant, but you can't script a documentary.
Well, it's really exciting to see that your time on TV or in film and your story wasn't cut short just from being on The Bachelor. Like, it's really nice to see that it continues to go on, and that you are absolutely helping people, and that you're making such huge impact, even though when you had that first chance to, they somewhat silenced you. It's nice to see that you're still getting your chance to like really share everything. Anyone
Sure.
that's going through something like similar to this, or just like a trying time, like what would you recommend to them to lean on the most?
If you're in a position like Sydney was saying about, there's something on the horizon that's going to be life altering, like maybe you have a cancer diagnosis, or maybe you already have a disease or a condition that's debilitating and chronic in nature, where science will tell you that it doesn't look good or your odds aren't great. What I was told at a very young age, in high school, from one of my basketball coaches, he said, in life, there's only two things you can control: it's your attitude and your effort. So even when you're dealt a crappy hand, like lymphedema, like an amputation, like cancer, like XYZ, fill in the blank, the first initial natural reaction typically is, why me?
Yeah.
Or F you, if you're bitter towards a divine power or a loved one or someone else you're blaming for it happening. But in my infinite wisdom, I would say, well, not infinite wisdom, I'll just say old man wisdom, having gone through 17 surgeries now, is that feel all of the feelings. It is natural. It is healthy. Do not suppress anything. Therapy works if you put the work in. And there's so many different types of therapy. Music is a therapy. Working out is a therapy. Going to church is a therapy. Hobbies, whatever you want to do. There's even clinics that do ketamine infusion therapies. I mean, there's so many avenues for you to help yourself when you're about to endure something life-changing. And I embraced all of those. But most importantly, that's when I grew my relationship with God. And I continue to have that as my compass, my North Star, and my purpose. So I just want everyone to know that even if you, again, are dealt a bad hand, there is a beautiful purpose in it, that if you're just patient and you're faithful, he will always deliver.
I love that. Last question. Any last leaving thought or piece of advice? It could be about lymphedema. It could be about literally anything. Just any last thought.
Know that there's purpose in your pain. And again, the pain could be anything. And I think we're all feeling some level of pain in this time. If you're not, then you're not aware of what's going on all over the world. I'm not even calling out social justice shit here or whatever's going on over there. We live in a very chaotic time right now. And when you acknowledge that, like, it's easy to stay in the negative headspace. But again, what I believe is in those seasons or moments of pain, there is a greater purpose in it. And when you seek, again, you have to put the work in and do the research. Again, so that's me working out before my amputation. That's me consulting with other patients, for example. When you have the tenacity to go after whatever it requires to make yourself stable or better, just stay with it, because that is the other side of pain, is the glory. So again, fight through the pain, you'll find the glory.
Beautiful. Cam, where can everyone find you, follow you, continue to follow your journey and everything like that?
Alrighty, I am typically on Instagram, because if I post Instagram, I'll share it to Facebook if you're a Facebooker. So on Instagram, my handle is Cam, C-A-M, Ron, R-O-N, and then my last name, Ayala, A-Y-A-L-A. All one word, Cameron Ayala. And, if you want to get more information about lymphedema or any other lymphatic disease, the best website you can go to for that is www.lymphaticnetwork.org. And lymphatic is spelled Lymphatic, lymphaticnetwork.com, or I'm sorry, .org.
Perfect. Thank you so much. This was wonderful.
Well, hey, I appreciate it. Have a great weekend, girl.
You too.